Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is the most recent release for the Luigi's Mansion franchise, although it has sparked a bit of controversy due to its $60 USD or $80 Canadian price tag. In today's video, I will figure out if Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is a good game and if it's worth its price. By the way, I'm Dash, make sure to subscribe and let's get going. One of the most appealing things about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD are the visuals. This game looks great, and the overall style of the game looks very nice. The Luigi model in this game looks great and fits the game very well, and the ghost designs in this game go for a sort of silly, fun design that works for the game as it takes on a sillier tone compared to the other Luigi's Mansion games. The look of the mansions are, however, mostly unchanged, except for now being in HD. Although they still look good, and this game still looks like a quality Nintendo game. The only problem I really have with this game's visuals is that they're going up against Luigi's Mansion 3's visuals, which I know is an unfair comparison since Luigi's Mansion 3 was designed for the Switch, but it is a little hard not to compare them since they're on the same console. But yeah, Luigi's Mansion 3 does still look better than this, although Luigi's Mansion 2 HD still has quality visuals that are up to Switch standards. The gameplay in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is incredibly fun and works excellently for the Switch, especially if you're on the go. The levels of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD are split into missions instead of having one connected mansion area like the other games in the series. Each mission in the game takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete, and I found myself really enjoying this game as I moved from mansion to mansion. That's right, this game has multiple mansions. In this game there are 5 mansions that Luigi will have to explore to beat the game, but I'll talk more about those later. For now I want to focus on the core gameplay of the missions in Luigi's Mansion. In Luigi's Mansion there are a few different mission types that help to keep the game fresh along with the core gameplay of solving puzzles and catching ghosts. In Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, some of the mission types include the Toad missions, where you have to save a Toad who will then help you with puzzles and getting to the other end of the level, where you can send them back to the safe house. Then there's the missing piece missions, as I like to call them. In these missions, the ghosts steal pieces of a door or object you need to progress through the mansion. As Luigi, your job is to get these pieces back so you can progress throughout the story. These missions can get a little slow and tedious after the third time this happens, but it didn't ruin the game for me. The last type of mission I would like to talk about is the Polterpup missions. These missions are sort of similar to the missing piece missions, but this time you have to track down this one dog with your dark light device. I tend to like these missions more than the missing piece missions, because you don't know the location of the Polterpup right after he takes the item you're looking for. So it's up to you to track him down instead of the game just giving you the location, which I personally think is a lot more fun. To end off talking about the gameplay in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, I want to talk about the 2 key things you'll be doing in every mission of the game. These things are solving puzzles and catching ghosts. I'll start by talking about the puzzles in the game. The puzzles in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD are fine. Just fine. In the game you basically have 4 different options for puzzles. Either use the suction on your vacuum pack to suck up hidden walls or to move gears. Then there's the opposite of the suction ability, which is the blowing air ability, which is used very few times throughout the game. Then there's the strobe bulb, which is basically just a huge flash of light that can activate certain switches. It's not that important for most puzzles, however. And the last ability, which is also my favorite ability, is the dark light device, which can reveal invisible objects, which is really cool, and it's used a good amount of times in the game. So those are all your different options for puzzles. And don't get me wrong, those are a good amount of options, but I still don't think it's enough to make the puzzles in this game that interesting. And I hate to bring up Luigi's Mansion 3 again, but the reason that game's puzzles feel so much better is because there are a lot more options for puzzles in the game due to the new mechanics like Luigi. But the puzzles in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD are fine. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. Now I want to talk about the last big part of gameplay in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is the combat. And I really like the combat in this game. In this game there are a bunch of different ghosts to collect. There's your basic green ghosts that can be sorta tough to defeat when they gang up on you or start to put on armor. Or there's the red ghosts, which hit hard and have more health than the greens. And then there's even ghosts that can possess things, but we'll talk more about those later. I really like catching ghosts in this game because instead of being able to slam ghosts on top of each other like in Luigi's Mansion 3, this game is more about dodging attacks by using the pull of the ghost to your advantage, which adds some difficulty to the game and makes encounters with different ghost types a lot of fun because you have to figure out how you can dodge the other ghost types while capturing some at the same time, which makes for an extremely unique gameplay experience. Overall, the puzzles and mission structure of the game are not always my favorite, but the combat is truly something special that I haven't seen in any other game. In Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, there are 5 mansions as previously mentioned. All of these mansions have their own unique themes and ideas, so I'm going to go over all the mansions in this game from worst to best in my opinion, and review them at the same time. At the number 5 spot we have the Icy Mansion. This mansion has a lot of missed opportunities in my opinion. Compared to all the other mansions in the game, this one for some reason only has 3 levels, and they mostly take place outdoors and on the ice instead of being in the mansion. The mansion for this area is a nice cozy lodge, and I personally think the lodge aesthetic would have been a lot cooler because it is something I have never seen in an ice level for any game. The boss for this area is also not my favorite thing in the world, but I will talk more about the bosses in this game later in the video. At the number 4 spot we have the Plant Mansion. The Plant Mansion is just kinda boring in my opinion. It has basic puzzles and nothing about the mansions design-wise really knocked me out of the park. The Venus flytrap enemies for this area were kinda cool I guess, but I didn't care too much for them. Although I really did like the balloon plants in this area, which allow Luigi to fly. Too bad they weren't used in much of the area, however. The mini level before the boss of the area was just simply annoying, and involves you going upstairs and you have to memorize which staircase is real and which one is fake, because if you step on a fake staircase, it sends you all the way back to the bottom of the area. So have fun memorizing about 100 sets of stairs, but luckily if you climb up the real staircase, the game will indicate with an orange flame that that's the real staircase. Also, one last thing about the mansion is the final boss for this area sucks, but the overall Plant Mansion is mainly just boring and not much else. At the number 3 spot is where mansions start to get good. My third favorite mansion in the game is the Clock Mansion. This mansion has an old factory look to it with some sand covering parts of the mansion. And I know that in my Metroid Prime review I said I don't like sandy levels in games, but I can make an exception here, because this mansion is more focused on the old clock factory look than a desert type look. This mansion also has some pretty good puzzles, particularly the conveyor belt puzzle in Mission 3 of this mansion offers a great time as you move from room to room, figuring out each puzzle. The final boss for this area isn't really a final boss and is more just an arena full of enemies, but it's still a good time. At the number 2 spot we have the first mansion in the game, which is more of a traditional style mansion with spiderwebs everywhere and suits of armor that move on their own. This mansion sort of acts like a tutorial for your main abilities and does a great job at teaching you the core gameplay loop of the game. I also like how this mansion sort of has a sub-theme of being about spiders, because there are webs everywhere. Even one of the missions for this mansion requires you to suck up every web in the mansion. Not to mention how the final boss for this mansion is a spider. But I really like this mansion, and it does a good job at teaching you how the game works while also having its own unique theme. At the number 1 spot we have the final mansion in the game, which is the Treacherous Mansion. This mansion has an incredible design with so many great ideas. The Treacherous Mansion has portals that connect to different biomes that are based on all the other mansions in the game. This idea works so well because it combines all the previous mechanics from all the other mansions into one mansion, sort of like a final test, which works well since this is the final mansion for the game. This mansion has a more traditional style spooky feel to it, but it feels right for this location since this game is called Luigi's Mansion and not Luigi's Frozen Wasteland. I'm looking at you, Mansion 4. This mansion also has 3 different bosses that I'll talk about later, but what you need to know is that they're all good, at the very least. Overall, this mansion has great puzzles, unique themes, and good bosses. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD has a ton of bosses that make the game stand out, and let's just say some of the bosses in this game are really bad, and some of them are pretty good, so I'll talk about some of the best and worst bosses in the game. My least favorite boss in the game is the staircase. Yes, seriously, that's a boss in the game. The staircase is really a possessor ghost that has taken over the staircase. All the staircase boss really does is jump at you, and this fight is not challenging whatsoever. I found myself really disliking this boss. However, there is a boss in the game that's probably worse than the staircase boss, which is the ice monster boss. The ice monster boss is the final boss of the ice world, and this fight doesn't even feel like a Luigi's Mansion boss, because most of the fight takes place in this minecart that you use to shoot stuff at the ice monster, so it breaks it, and so you can really suck up the poltergeist. Even though this boss is terrible and does not feel like a Luigi's Mansion boss, I do really like the design of the monster because he looks pretty awesome. Although I do want to talk about the final boss of the game, so spoilers ahead. The final boss of this game is King Boo, and this is a great fight. In this fight, King Boo puts you on this floating island in the middle of nowhere, and to damage him you have to lure him into a spike ball that's falling from the sky. This fight is really great because you have to dodge attacks and attack King Boo at the same time, which is a lot of fun and feels like what a Luigi's Mansion boss should be, which is combat mixed with puzzles. However, you might be saying, Dash, what puzzles? Well, in the King Boo fight, you have to run through a mansion after you take down the King's health bar. When you run through the mansion, you'll have to dodge King Boo's tricks, so you don't get hit by King Boo, who is chasing you at the same time. Some of the things King Boo will do while he's chasing you include moving drawers or dressers, and pushing them out so you can't get past, and having suits of armor attack you. After you get past this section in the fight repeats with slightly harder attacks, and after phase 3 of the fight you are able to suck up King Boo and you will beat the game. But this game also has another mode called the ScareScraper, which I will talk about in the next section. The ScareScraper is the side mode of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and it's meant to be played with friends, which I don't have. I mean, I don't have friends that play this game. I played through the ScareScraper once just to see what it was all about, and I thought it was fine. I played ScareScraper on normal difficulty with 5 floors, and I played it on the ghost hunting mode. In the ScareScraper mode, your objective is to get to the top of the ScareScraper, which involves you climbing up the tower 1 floor at a time. Now, in the ghost hunting mode, which was the mode I played, you have to hunt down all the ghosts on the floor to move up a level, and I thought it was kinda boring. Here's the thing, I really like the combat in Luigi's Mansion 2, and I wish the hunt mode was more like a battle arena where you just have to fight ghosts that increase in difficulty as you move up the floors, instead of having to look around the floors to find ghosts. Although, I guess it wouldn't be much of a hunt if you weren't hunting for ghosts. Anyway, when you reach the top of the ScareScraper, you have to fight a boss. When I arrived at the top, I got to fight the ghost that has a brain. This fight was fine, and I didn't enjoy it too much. I think I would probably like this mode more if I had other people to play with, but overall, it wasn't the main thing I enjoyed about Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Now I want to talk about if Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is worth the $60 USD or $80 Canadian, and some of the issues I have with the game. I'll start by talking about some of the issues I have with the game. First off, some of the mansions kinda drag on for no reason. The plant mansion is probably the mansion that drags on the most, as a bunch of stuff happens in that mansion that's solely there just to slow you down. Second, this game has a really weird difficulty spike out of nowhere at the end of the game. At the end of the game, in the treacherous mansion, ghosts that used to have 10 health will now have 50, which is just really weird, and it pops up out of the blue. and I wish the game would build up the difficulty over time instead of letting that happen. Thirdly, the game is kinda short. Now, I know this is something the devs really couldn't fix as this is a remake, but I beat this game in 11 hours, and for that big $60 or $80 price tag, I was hoping for a bit of a longer game. Lastly, I want to talk about another Nintendo remake that costs less than Luigi's Mansion 2 HD that Nintendo released in the past. Now, I know this might be a bit of an unfair comparison, but Metroid Prime Remastered costs $40 USD, and this game is amazing. Not to mention it has some huge graphical and control option changes too, that Luigi's Mansion 2 HD just does not have. Not to mention this game costs more than Metroid Prime Remastered, which is just insane to me. I really wish Luigi's Mansion 2 HD was worth that $60 USD or $80 Canadian price tag, but sadly I have to say, it's not, which is really too bad. And on a side note here, I think all remasters of Nintendo games should be $40 USD, unless the games are full-on remakes, which in that case I guess Nintendo could bump up the price to a full-price game. A great example of this would be Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door. But anyway, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is a good game. But is it worth $60 USD or $80 Canadian? Absolutely not. Anyway, check out the video up here on screen, and I will see you next time. Bye.